everyone. Morning. Happy Saturday morning. So nice to see you. I see people are logging in. So I'm just going to basically make small talk with you until I give people 1 minute to log in because I realize it is cold, gray, and rainy here in London. And it took a bit of time. It took a bit extra time for me to wake up this morning. So, yes, hopefully, I'm not sure if you've used GoToWebinar before, but you may want to familiarize yourself with the content. There is a chat function. There is a way for you to ask questions. I am seeing people log in. Hello, Diane. Hello, Karen. Hello, Omar, Miles, Sophia, Yvette. I'm seeing people log in as I say this. So drop me a line and let me know that you can see me. Let me know that you can hear me. Oh, boy, y'all got that question functionality down. Yes, Shema, what's up? So nice to see you. I was like, let me just move my chair around. Move closer, move closer, move closer. So nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, it's been a lot, guys. It's been a lot. It's been a lot recently. And I think it's because it's 2019. And the reason why I say that is because as we come, fourth quarter, I think, particularly if you guys are, particularly if you work in for someone else and you work with large corporates, fourth quarter is a dirty quarter. And every year I know that fourth quarter is a dirty quarter, like it's a really heavy quarter. And every year I'm not prepared for how heavy it is. And additionally, in my head, I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is like the end of a decade. How did that decade go for you? We're going into 2020 now, meaning that we're actually, I'm not just thinking about, how did my last year go or how did my last month go? I'm actually thinking about how did my decade go because it's 2019. So in the back of your heads, think about how did that decade go for you? Did you do everything that you wanted to do? I think on the whole, I'm grateful and I'm happy. There's been a lot of amazing things that's happened in my life. But on the other hand, I know that there are some things that I maybe wanted to achieve, and there are also some things that I want to make sure I achieve really early on in the next decade, because that's what we're talking about. Is anyone else is that messing with anyone else's mind? Because that's messing with my mind just a hot minute. So please do. The functionality is there in in WhatsApp, in GoToWebinar. I love when you guys drop in questions. I love when you drop in, kind of perspectives, point of views. This is engagement. This is interaction. This is what's up. So gonna start off. Today is, let's see, near the end of October. And a lot of you know me because I've done the Black British Business Awards, or you know me because I did WOW, the Women of the World Festival, or you know me just because, we have mutual friends. However, today and over these last few months, working up to today, I launched a new program that's a bit more kind of personal and individual, and it suits what I was focusing on and what, people were speaking to me about, and it's Money Moves. And one of the things that has always been asked of me is, Mel, how do you achieve so much? Like, it feels like you're everywhere. It feels like you're doing, there's a lot that you're putting your hand to. And so I know that over the years, what I've learned is I've learned lots of tricks. And actually, if I'm honest with you, there are so many times when I self-sabotage, when I don't do what I want to do or what I set out to do. And so number one, I wanted to make sure that people knew that it wasn't just that I was this ridiculous robotic kind of vehicle of efficiency. Not at all. It's the fact that there was a certain point where there was a certain process that I went through in regards to kind of getting to know myself and then really drilling down on what I wanted to do and literally using tricks that I've learned over the years, that I've learned from, either the school or learning as a consultant, and I've just adopted them. So what I've done today is a quick run through. Now, this is a quick run through because this is actually part of the Money Moves program. These are all chapters in themselves, but I'm going to go through in the next 20 minutes the whole list of stuff that has worked for other people, that has worked for myself in regards to tricking myself into getting ish done. Now, it may sound harsh. Why do I got to trick myself? I'm not going to lie, that's probably a bit of copywriting luxury that I've taken. You don't necessarily trick yourself if you know that you're doing it, but you know what I mean. Sometimes I get in my own way. Sometimes that's what we do. We get in our own way. And, we know there are things that we want to do. We know that there are things that we want to achieve, and we don't do them. And then we look back and we wonder why, because it's obviously something that we wanted, right? So, over the last few years, I did a few focus groups with some of my students, with other consultants, and just learned about the tricks of the trade. Like, how do you get ish done? Additionally, I have some amazing friends who are doing amazing things, and just being there with them, being in their space, I'm noticing some of the things that they do. So what I wanted to let you know today is that you are not alone. And there are several songs that I could sing, but you guys know what song I'm thinking of. You are not alone. You're not alone in this. I am not alone. I know that everyone is trying to do their thing. And I'm hoping that with the tips that you learned today, that you will, trick yourself into achieving at least one little thing that you've wanted to achieve for a very long time. A little bit of a caveat. Number one, as I said, this is a quick kind of trot through all of the different ways that I have learned. In the Money Moves program, we go much deeper in regards to its actual application into your life. So this is definitely just a trot through for a Saturday morning to give you a little bit of zhuzh, a little bit of something, something, so you know what we're talking about, and you can decide which ones you like. And number two, this is also, it is a pick and mix selection. So you might not do them all, but if you get one, then I would be really, really happy that I was able to help you in some kind of way. So, I think you guys can all hear me. I see people logging in. This is fantastic. It's beautiful. I'm going to switch over so that, you guys know I'm here. This is live in full effect, 10:09. This is not a tape. This is not a recording, but I'm going to switch over just so that you guys can see some of the points. So I'm going to be switching back and forth between myself and the slides, okay? But I will also always be looking for your questions. So what are we looking at? Here we go. That's not what I'm looking at. I want to know. I want to make sure that you guys can see. I don't want to show the main screen. I want you to see. Hey, good times. So this is quick overview on how to achieve your goals. In other words, how do you trick yourself into achieving your goals? Woohoo, good times. So I think by virtue of you guys being here, that you recognize that you may have some self-sabotaging habits. So what do those look like? I know in my life, it's about, if I want, let's just say I want to wake up early, it's about going to bed late the night before, watching, a show that actually I don't really need to watch. It's about me staying up late when I want to wake up early, or it's about me procrastinating and cleaning the house instead of doing the work, things like that. There are some habits that I know I have when I don't want to do the work for whatever reason. And so what you may think this is really simple. Well, of course, Mel, recognize your self-sabotaging habits. But actually, this is the first step in regards to just taking responsibility and building some sort of healthy awareness of what you're doing to yourself. It's I don't want this to be a place where you are kind of self-flagellating and you're, hitting yourself over the head, in the side of the head because you're not doing the right thing. This is not what I want from this. What it is, it's actually I want to be empowering. So when you recognize your self-sabotaging habits, what you're doing is actually taking responsibility, and you're saying, "Hey, I got choice, and I can make this choice with this consequence, or I can make that choice with that consequence." And so when you take the step, as you have really in terms of even just attending this webinar with this kind of title, then you just got to recognize those self-sabotaging habits. The little things that you do when you don't want to do the work for whatever reason. Like, where do you go? How does that manifest in your life? For me, I know one of the things, I know that I'm not very functional without sleep. I know that I also am very functional when I, wake up early. And so when there's something that I don't want to do in my life, then all of a sudden you see me start to stay up late and then wake up late. But when I'm concerned with my performance, then I know I wake up early, and that means I go to bed early. It's a little thing that we do, guys. It's a little thing. So everyone, it's personal, but just take a moment to think about, how do you self-sabotage? When you want to self-sabotage, how does that show up in your life? Awareness is key, my friends. Okay, and just take responsibility for it. Everyone has this. This is not you alone. It manifests in different ways, but everyone does have it. So for example, I've met a lot of women who, they will say, "Oh, I have to help this person, I have to help this person, I have to help this person, and therefore I can't help myself because I spent all this time helping all these other people." This is what happens a lot to a lot of us. So I've heard it from women, but I know that it happens across a lot of the care professions, a lot of the things that we do in our lives to either care for our families, care for our communities, how we show up. So sometimes what happens is that we take so much other time like sharing and looking at other people, that we actually don't look after ourselves. So if that's the way that you self-sabotage, like you prioritize other people before yourself, then recognize that, acknowledge it. That's where I'm going with this. So just take a little moment to recognize your self-sabotaging habits. In Money Moves, we have an analysis. We have a quiz that we do, like a survey quiz kind of thing that we do, where it helps you it helps you recognize where you self-sabotage. So think about it for a little bit this morning. But again, this is just a quick overview, so we're going to keep it moving, my friends. Again, once you recognize that you do self-sabotage, you take responsibility for it, this is where the deep work happens. So when you're having your cup of tea this morning, when you're going for your coffee, when you're maybe like walking to the tube, or you have that mindless time when you're on the tube going to work, really ask yourself, why are you self-sabotaging? What exactly are you afraid of? What is it? Afraid of the success of doing it? Now, this is a really, really deep question that you will not be able to answer right away. Just so you might have to think about it. So, for example, people may be afraid of the success, and they may be afraid of the scrutiny that comes with success. So, therefore, instead of shining their light out, they're like, you know what? I don't feel that my life would withstand scrutiny. Therefore, I am not going to, put myself out there. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. There are usually some deep rooted fears behind why you are self sabotaging. Now, when I say self sabotaging, I'm talking about there is a passive aggressive or active way of not going of sabotaging your own dreams, sabotaging your goals, sabotaging your vision. So it doesn't just have to be active. It could also be quite passive aggressive as well. So it's prioritizing things above your goal that sometimes is self-sabotaging. So why are you self-sabotaging? If we want to go really deep, really personal, I know that when I've always had a thing where I've always had a problem with my weight in regards to just being able to kind of level it out. And I know when I put weight on, that means I'm afraid of something. There's something that I don't want that I don't want to put out there in the world. And so I'm hiding myself and trying to like make myself less attractive to the world because I don't want to put myself out there because I don't feel I'm worthy enough. If we want to go kind of really deep on that, that's how deep I'm asking you to go. Like, really, what are you afraid of? Go down the path of, if you did achieve success in this area, what would that mean? And why are you scared of it? Why are you afraid of it? Is it just the fact that you don't want to change, that you like, you like the status quo, all kinds of things. So really what it's about identifying the core fear, the big fear behind achieving that dream. You're not going to be able to answer that today, my friends, because Saturday, let's keep it real. Like that was a bit of a heavy message. So let me just kind of go back so you guys can see what's up. Yeah, that was a bit of a heavy message. You're not gonna be able to answer that today, this morning, but just take a think about what is those long-standing goals. Why don't they happen? Why don't we want to make them happen? Because if you're on the phone with me right now, if you're on this webinar, you make things happen. You wanted to go to a webinar and you signed up. People who wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning to go to a webinar about how to make their goals happen, they've had some success in the past. It's not they have a mindset. The mindset tweak is already there. So I want you to be able to, just take some time and think about that. That's a bit of a heavy message. Too heavy for Saturday morning. So I'm just gonna take a little cup of tea while we do this. So once you've identified what that core fear is, though, then it's about addressing that fear. So once you identify and address the fear, and when I say address the fear, I want you to legitimize it in a way. And when I say legitimize it, I mean acknowledge that it's there. Don't pretend that it's not there. That's all. Don't pretend that you're not scared of change. Don't pretend you're not scared of the success in that way. Just legitimize it and say, okay, this is what's up. I get it now. So just address it. When I say address it, that's actually a really quick step once you've identified it. Identifying it takes a little bit longer, but addressing it, that's just really quick. It's like, okay, I get it. That's what's up. Because it's just, again, it builds up a healthy self-awareness. So, of course, my phone is going off. Why wouldn't it? I'm going to turn off my WhatsApp. So what worst scenario. This is one of my favorite activities, and for any of my fears, I would always say, for any of your fears, I would always advocate going for worst case scenario. So what is that? That is, let's just pretend my dream was realized. Like, let's just pretend Ish went down. What would happen? What's the worst case scenario? You know who did a really good talk on this? Oh, there's a question. You know who did a really good talk on this? Oh, someone raised their hand. Hello, Shemile. Please put your if you can put your put your chat your questions in the chat if you guys have any questions. Worst case scenario, a really good example of this. You know who else does this? Tim Ferriss. So he was the author of the 4-Hour Work Week. And he did a beautiful TED talk, so not a TEDx talk, a TED talk on this, in regards to addressing fears. And one of the best ways to address any kind of fear and to kind of mitigate it is to do the worst case scenario planning. So let's just pretend your worst fear manifests. Go down that path and really, really kind of eke it out in your mind. Now, I don't want you to, I don't want just general fears like, oh, my dog dies or something like that. No. Like I want very specific fears. If I achieve this goal, I fear that, and go down that path, go down into the wormhole and do that worst case scenario kind of envisioning. And what consequently happens, of course, is that you start to think, okay, well, actually, if worst case scenario does happen, how will I handle it? And the realization is that you can handle it if the worst case scenario comes through. So you may think, oh, Mel, well, I don't really need to do this. Let's just say your goal is weight loss, for example. So if you lose 50 pounds, so why are you self-sabotaging against losing 50 pounds, right? Like, why do you continue maybe not to exercise, or you continue to eat the wrong foods, or, something like that? go down and address the fear and say, okay, well, what am I scared of? What am I scared of will happen if I lose 50 pounds? And then go down to the worst case scenario. Like the worst case scenario is that I put myself out there and, someone makes fun of me or something like that. And then think about how will you handle that if the worst case scenario manifests. So this is a proven tactic. I've mentioned a few I've mentioned Tim Ferriss who talked about it in the TED Talk, but actually it is we use it in philosophy. So we used it in my master's in philosophy in my logic courses. Then there's a decision matrix that we create in regards to helping us make very quick decisions and identifying what decisions we should be looking at. And worst case scenario, I promise you, is a actual kind of philosophical, psychological, even kind of military use of kind of resources. So think about the worst case scenario and think about how you would deal with it if it came up in your life. Even with all of these things, I would advocate actually writing it down. Thinking about it is great and everything, but we know that when you write something down, it's another level of engagement with the content. So try to do that. Okay. I'm going to keep on moving because I only have like 7 minutes left to do all this stuff. So those are how do you identify the self-sabotaging tricks, right? But now we're going to move into the ways that people have tricked themselves into success in the past. And I got to say, please feel free to add in any comments that you have, in regards to, maybe some tricks that you use. Again, this is a buffet of life, a buffet of life tricks. I'm only going to quickly go over them. There are pictures on the menu, but if you really want to know what's up, then you got to go deep into and actually join Money Moves. But I'm going to give you a little overview of how we of the topics that we cover in Money Moves in regards to tricking yourself into success and the mind games that we play. The thing is, we got to remember that change comes in small doses. So for some of these big goals, it's not about you kind of jumping out there and achieving the change in 1 second. It's not going to happen. For the goals that where we self-sabotage, my friends, are goals that usually have to be, in small doses, like daily habits or weekly habits. So my friend says, people say to fake it until you make it. What's your opinion on this? Good question, Miriam. There are some instances where faking it until you make it works, and there are some instances where it doesn't. Later on, I do cover kind of affirmations and self-talk. However, I am of the school of authenticity in regards to being exactly where I am. But on the other hand, I also am aware that when you're not feeling very confident, you have the tendency to underplay your value and underplay your role. And so I also advocate making sure that you have a healthy bit of self-awareness as well as an amazing tribe so that you are putting yourself out there in a way that's that you can comfortably meet. So on one hand, yes, fake it till you make it, but let's just be honest, I am not trying to go to the doctor that's faking it till he makes it. There are some there are some things I'm like, no, there's no faking. There's either do or do not. There's no fake. I can't deal. So it really does depend on the situation, I would say. In regards to advertising your services or advertising yourself, then I would say that you need to be comfortable with what you're putting out in the world in regards to delivery. And if you're comfortable with it, if you know that you can deliver it, then there is a way to use language that says, it may not be that you have that experience. Like, I don't want you to lie. But on the other hand, you can speak to other bits of your experience that and your history that would, speak to you being capable, more than capable of doing the work that's at hand. So yes, Miriam, I actually don't like saying fake it till you make it because it implies that I'm lying to people. So like faking it means that there's no kind of there's no capability there and you're making it up, where most likely you do have capabilities that will lend towards you doing the role or doing the job or doing the work. And so it's more so about just using the language that speaks to that rather than having to lie to people directly and saying, I went to medical school and I didn't. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a fine balancing act. But thanks so much, Miriam, for that question. I hope that helped. Let me know. So change comes in small doses. For most of the changes that you want in your life, it comes in small doses, and that means that you have to think about how you're going to chunk up those big goals. So what do I mean by that? I mean that there is some expectation management that has to happen. So again, if I think about, the Black British Business Awards, some people think that issue just popped up out of the sky. 2012, I put a PowerPoint down and said, "Hey, EY, can you sponsor the awards?" And then they said yes, and that's okay. It doesn't happen that way at all. There was so much. That's why, even though, yes, the first ceremony was in 2013, the PowerPoint deck was in 2011. And there was a lot of version control. There were a lot of meetings. There are focus groups. There were all kinds of things that there are bringing on ambassadors. There's all kinds of things in the lead up to that to create something as big as Black British Business War, as in terms of the vision that I had for it. And so I think that for you, with the goal that you have, you got to understand that, number one, it ain't gonna happen overnight, and which is kind of scary. But on the other hand, it's actually quite good because that means that you have to chunk up your goal and put them down into like just little achievable little bits. I start with this because this has been my number one thing. Like I can't describe to you. Okay, chunking up your goals. I'm going to go on camera because, you need to see the intensity in my face. People, any big goal needs to be chunked up. Don't do this to yourself. Don't just say, I want to lose 50 pounds. I can't. It won't work. Big goals are achieved and big changes achieved through daily habit. That's just the way it is. And the people who get that are the people who achieve great things. So, whatever big goal you have, whether it be losing weight, whether it be getting a new job, whether it be writing a big report, writing that book, whatever it is, you got to chunk it up into manageable goals, my friend. So what does that look like? That looks like, on the daily, what am I doing? On the daily, what am I doing towards this? So say you want to start your own business, right? But you work full time. Like, you're not going to just be able to start the business so and so on the weekend. Let me just sit down this weekend and start the business. It's not going to be like that, my friends. It's got to be that you have to research just a little bit what the steps are, like the order of execution is, and you got to do a little bit every day, and then you got to go pat yourself on the back when you do that little bit. So if you're starting a business, for example, it may be that it's just about getting Monday, it's about buying the domain. Tuesday, it's about opening up an account, opening up company's house and paying for and opening up your company on company's house. Wednesday, it's about filling in the application for your bank account. Thursday, it's about going on Fiverr and getting a contractor to build your branding and your logo. Friday, it's about, it's about getting a getting a web hosting account so that you can create a web page or a blank, like one or two web pages to announce that it's there as a placeholder. And then you keep on doing that over and over and over again until you get to the goal. But you got to break it up into execution chunks and little chunks based on the time that you have. So if you got a lot of time, then of course you can have big goals that you focus on for the whole amount of time. But basically, I know that I'm looking at your names, I'm looking at my people who are online, and I know that most of y'all are like, doing a lot of things. You guys got families, you have children to take care of, you have homes to take care of, you got full-time jobs. It's deep. So you got to, these goals that you have in the corner, You got to break it out into small chunks. So, it could be something as simple as weight loss and saying, okay, small chunk is that I have to run 3 to 4 times a week. That means I have to plan that out 3 to 4 times a week for 45 minutes. 45 minutes, that's got to happen in between 7 and 8 in the mornings, 4 times a week. And I'm going to plan it to do it this day, this day, and this day. I can't describe to you with all of these books that I have in the background, and you guys don't see the shelves that are over here and the shelves that are back there and the shelves that are, on the 2 floors upstairs. Every single one of the books, Essentialism, Deep Work, Focus, all of these books tell us to break things down into chunks. So just take that, 20, 30 minutes and just plan out what the steps are for you to execute against your goal, my darlings. Okay? I can't describe to you. Chunk, small chunks, really small chunks. So if you know that on Thursdays you got that board meeting, you got to work, then you know what? Maybe the chunk is just one little task, but it's just miniature, mini steps of progress. I see some questions here. Oh, thank you, Miriam. I'm so glad. Yay, confidence and authenticity. Exactly, confidence and authenticity. So this is, I'm so glad that you like the answer to the question. Good times. So if you start going off half-cocked on your goal without planning it in advance, it doesn't happen. It is I don't think you understand. I don't think I get to talk about it anymore. So yes, please chunk up your goals, guaranteed. Why is this a trick? Because it tricks your brain into thinking that, oh, this is not so big. Sometimes a big goal is really daunting, and actually it's so daunting, it's so scary, so big, hairy, and scary that you don't end up doing it. That's the problem. So the trick here is that you're tricking your brain into thinking that, oh, it's just a small step. All right, then cool. Oh, okay, it's just a small step. Okay, it's cool. Oh, I can just do this. It's really cool. So you're tricking your brain into thinking about the small little step and focusing on that small next step rather than focusing on the big hairy step, which may seem so far away for you. Okay, so that's the way that we trick our brains. We trick our brains by saying that actually it's not so bad, it's a small little step. You know what I'm saying? Okay, we got a question from Dia. Yes. Yeah, and you know what? I am about to answer that question, so I'm going to ask her a question right before that slide comes up. Doo-doo-doo. So Dia's just asked, let me just take off things so you guys can see it. What do you think of the idea of speaking out your goals into the world as a way of keeping yourself accountable? Hell to the yizza. So one of the tricks that we use is telling somebody. Telling somebody about your goal is about saving face. It's about ego and it's about pride. In a perfect world, we would set goals all by ourselves and we do them all by ourselves, and that's it. No shame. That's fine. However, this world is not perfect, and I know sometimes my ego says, okay, so Dia's at the gym. You can't see the slides. I'm at the gym. Yes, but basically the slide says tell somebody. So yes, I have used my ego against or for my own purposes, and this is where we go back to our little healthy bit of self-awareness, my friends. I'm not gonna lie to you. I have an ego. I'm a bit prideful. Pray for me. I pray for it every Sunday. Well, not every Sunday, actually every night. I got to just make sure that my pride is kind of kept in check. But this is one that really, really works. If you know that you're a little bit prideful, if you know you got a little bit of an ego where you're not trying to look bad in these streets, you're not trying to look bad in front of people, then when you tell somebody about the goal, that's how you're basically working against it. You're tricking yourself. Because if you tell somebody that you're about to do something and you don't want to lose face, you will do it. Even if you don't want to do it anymore, you'll do it because you told people about it. And so I've worked, this is one of my favorites for my own kind of personality, my own makeup. If, you know, you don't care about that kind of stuff, this won't work for you. But as I said before, This is a celebrations bag of tricks. So you got to take the celebration that works for you. You may not be the Malteser, it may be about the Snickers. You just got to see what's up. But telling somebody has worked for me. So if you have a goal, tell the streets. If you don't want to lose face, if you're that kind of person that doesn't want to lose face in these streets, tell the streets that you're doing this goal, and your backside will make sure that the goal is achieved, because you don't want to lose face. So great question and really, really timely. Thank you so much, Dia, for that at the gym. Keep working out. Yes, that's what's up. So then the next is the next way I love to trick myself is reminding myself. So again, we go into really, really deep ways of doing this, but essentially what I try to do is remind myself in my house, in my life, that I have this goal. So when I have a goal, you guys can't see it, but I always I print out my goals on a monthly basis, particularly when I have a really, really big kind of important hairy goal that I'm looking at. And I publish it, like I actually print it out and I put it in a printed frame in my house. I put it on my phone. I make a screen kind of saver, like a PDF or a JPEG, and I put it as on my phone so I can remind myself of it. I sometimes have them by the front door to my family members hate it. I put it on my mirror. I put it on my fridge. And what it does is reminds me that this is a priority to me. Because what happens, and this is how you trick your brain. The thing is, again, we are hella busy people, right? We got so much ish to do. And so what we have to make sure of is that our ish is front of mind. Our priorities are front of mind. So when I put my goals on the fridge, or if I put my goals on the mirror, if I put my goals near the door, I put my goals on my screensaver on my computer, I put my goals on my screensaver on my phone, then I remember those goals. Those goals are in the back of my mind every single time. Like, especially, we pick up our phone how many times a day? We look at our computer screens how many times a day? We walk out of our house at least once a day. So you're reminding yourself of your priorities, because again, what happens is that, and it's just about, this is how we are tricking our brain. The thing is, our brain can only focus on one thing at a time. And during the day, all kinds of things are going to try to take your focus, my friends. They're going to be like, focus on me here, focus on me here, focus on me here. And you have to remind yourself in your brain that this is important to you. And you got to set it, make sure that you remind yourself from morning until night. It doesn't have to be a whole list of your big. Oh, whoa. Sorry about that, guys. That was my postman at 10 o'clock. That's the postman, and that's why it always happens around 10 o'clock. I don't even know why I do webinars at 10 o'clock. Whoo-wee. Hopefully you guys are still here. Let me know if you guys heard all that nonsense. I'm looking after my friend's dog as well, and so because she's on holiday for this weekend, and so that's why it was like a doghouse in here. Anyway, back to the original point of the story is, don't let other people's focuses derail your focus. And you got to remind yourself over and over and over again that there are some priorities that you have, or else you will let them go. And you'll use other people's priorities as a means of explaining away your procrastination. And that's what it is. It is procrastination. People who achieve great things, who are really, really successful, they are extremely focused on their goals. And even, of course, they work with others, they help others, they're in relationship with others. But even those relationships and those other projects that they be working on all contribute towards their goal. It is like, I can't describe to you how much this is so key. So you got to remind yourself of your goals, though. And if you don't know the goal, then you got to make sure that you articulate it. That's key. So articulate it, put it on a piece of paper, and remind yourself. It doesn't have to be actual words, though. It could literally be a blue string around your wrist. and it just reminds you, hey, this blue string reminds me that this is a goal, this is a priority. Oh, I see the questions coming in thick and fast, thick and fast. So yes, yes, love the yes. My dogs are well. My dog is calm, but with the two of them together, I'm like, "Urgh." So I'm gonna take them for a nice long walk afterwards. So please, guys, please, 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 with all my heart, remind yourself of your priorities. This world, will chew you up or and eat you up and chew you up, and then it will just, people, don't necessarily think of you and your what you need, right? And so it's your responsibility to think of what you need. It's your responsibility to think of the time you need, the priorities that you have in your life, and it doesn't have to be, it's all goals, whether it be your working out goal, whether it be like my friend, there's a friend of mine, she's great. We always talk about, meeting for lunch, a group of us, and she always says, hey, I can't meet until 12:30. You know why you can't meet until 12:30 on Saturday? Because she makes it's her discipline to work out on Saturday mornings. There's a class that she loves to go to at 11:30. I don't take offense because she prioritizes that class, even though I don't like eating that late, but I will, but she's prioritizing her goal, her health and fitness in this case. And so that's what it's about. It's about kind of reminding yourself of your own goal, because sometimes with all the requests coming in, it's not that you forget, it's just that it just gently deprioritizes. So put it top of mind, remind yourself very much, please, please, please remind yourself in a gentle way, of course. That really really works for me, because again, I think with the awards, what happens is that pretty much I get invited to participate in anything that has a title Black in it because of the Black British Business Awards, and I have to remind myself of why I'm here, and that means that I have to deprioritize some things and I have to prioritize the awards. And I remember that people are interested in me because of the awards. So if I don't spend enough time on the awards and make them a success, then they wouldn't be inviting me. So I got to remember, like at the core of it, that platform of the Blackbird Business Awards has to be central in my mind in regards to making sure it's a success. I see some questions. This is something I need to do and learn to do, prioritizing myself. Yeah, it's really tough. Give yourself permission to prioritize yourself. Give yourself permission to do that. I learned that I've learned that when I prioritize myself, I am a better gift to the world. I am. So when I prioritize my health, I prioritize my sleep, I literally can gift myself to the world. When I don't prioritize my own stuff, then, and when you don't prioritize your own stuff, when you give to others, you feel hard done by. It's not a good look, people. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. So yes, prioritizing yourself. Yeah, this is taking a bit longer than I thought. I was going to say 30 minutes, but actually, I think it's just going to, don't worry, we'll finish before 11, I promise. Zap your fears. Now, what does that mean, zapping your fears? The thing is, bad thoughts are arising all the time. So I call it, we have a whole section in Money Moves on this one, based on the teaching of a book, Taming Your Gremlin. So identify, acknowledge the fact that you have thoughts that go through your head that are not, that just kind of, that aren't in your best interest. That sometimes they just say, hey, you can't do this, or hey, you shouldn't do this. Acknowledge them and then zap them. Now you may think, no, that's an easy one. No, actually, this is quite tough, my friends. It's quite tough. It is monitoring your thought process. It's monitoring your thought process and starting to zap those kinds of self-limiting thoughts that you may have. There in Money Moves, we have one of the modules is Taming Your Gremlin. And so it's actually identifying that you have a gremlin, like acknowledging it, identifying it. I've given my gremlin a name. My gremlin has a name. And so I actually, every time I have a thought that is slightly, and it teaches us, teaching you how to kind of identify what that gremlin voice will sound like. Because sometimes, gremlin, sometimes your voice is keeping you safe. They're like, oh, Mel, don't put your hand in the fire because it's going to burn you. That's totally cool. But there are some times when the gremlin voice is about, protecting you, because protecting you from change. And so you got to identify that gremlin, and you got to zap those fears and bad thoughts, acknowledging them, but not letting them control you, because it's only one of your voices. I'm not saying that everyone goes around having voices in their head. That's quite funny, but that's not what I'm saying at all, my friends. But there is definitely a gremlin voice that you need to identify, that picks it, that kind of speaks up every time you're pushing out into the unknown territory. Again, this may not be for everybody, but this is a pick and mix. Oh dear. This is a pick and mix of life. So the pick and mix of life, and you just kind of take the tools that work for you. But if you know that you have some self-talk that's kind of garbage, or if you know that if you have some self-talk that you maybe say to yourself, but you would never let anyone say to your little sister or your little brother, then that's the kind of self-talk that I'm talking about. So think about it this way. Think of yourself as, if I, if this same voice was speaking that way to my little sister, my little brother, my child, would I let them do that? Or would I kick their lights, or would I knock their lights out? So that's how you start to identify the gremlin. Of course, again, in Money Moves, we do go through this in detail so that we can really attack the gremlin when it comes, acknowledging that gremlin usually wants to keep us safe, but also putting it on the shelf where it belongs when we need to. So identify, zap your fears and the bad thoughts when they arise. And beautiful question, linking to the questions, replacing them with some good thoughts. And how do you do that? Affirmations. So again, this is something that has worked for so many people. There are whole industries that have worked around kind of affirmations. There are books, there are some books, movies around the power of affirmations. So not only are we negating our little thoughts, our bad thoughts, but we are also replacing them with affirmations. And when I say affirmations, I mean like speaking to yourself like it's already been done, declaring it like it's already been done, whatever you're doing, that you are healthy, wealthy, and wise. And being very specific about it as well. So affirmations can come in regard, like I'm not just talking about words here, people. I am talking about, it could be a picture of you at your goal weight. It could be a picture of the house that you want to build or buy. It could be, you in front of the building where you want to work. It could be you kind of holding your best-selling novel that you've just written. It could be the £1,000,000 check that you have, that you're carrying around in your wallet. There's something, and this is how you're tricking your brain, because your brain needs to understand what success feels like. And then it starts to reside in success. So that's why when you start to say things, when you're making pictures of things, when you're behaving like you're doing the thing, then what happens is that your brain starts to make those synapses, like those little kind of, in between the two concepts, and it starts to, it's easier for you to attain the goal because your brain is visioning the possibility of you already having the goal. So it's as simple as, that's why vision boards are so key. And we have a vision board session as part of the Money Moves program, because it's about really sitting down. And even though, yeah, it's fun because you can do vision boards, you can sit around kind of drinking wine and cutting out magazine photos, but actually it's the thoughtful process of imagining, what does that feel like? What does achieving this goal feel like? Now, this is scientific. Again, this is not just me being motivational. And why we know this works is that, particularly you see it with athletes, because athletes, when they, the the top athletes, in particular, I'm looking at the study of the top tennis players, the Grand Slam tennis players, they spend as much time, they do all the physical, of course, and the practice, but what they also do is vision out themselves playing. They actually sit and vision it. They sit and then they think about it. NFL players as well. So the National Football League in the States, that's one of the many coaching regimes that the players go through, that they actually vision out the play before and sit there and think about it in their head, think about how it will feel, think about not just kind of from a top down view, but thinking about how it feels for them to be part of the play. So this is actual science. It tricks your brain into thinking that you've already attained it, and therefore it's easier for you to attain it. This is definitely a trick. This is one of my, like, say, even though these are all my top like 10 tricks, but this is definitely one of my top 3. Sit, have a cup of tea, and think about what that looks like, what success looks like. I see there are questions coming in. So yes, I struggle now with starting my dream because I've been talking about it for the last 10 years. How would you deal with now starting a dream that's been sleeping for years? Um, if your dream has been sleeping for years, great question, by the way. Thank you so much for asking that. Um, I, number one, I want to assure you that dreams, there's no kind of time limit on the manifestation of dreams. So again, I remember when I was a kid, when I was in university, I ran this the West Indian Students Association, and we had this show at the university where it was celebrating kind of Caribbean talent, and I knew what I wanted to do, and that must have been when I was like 20, 21. So, and then the Black British Business Awards were started several years later, in terms of the manifestation of a vision and a dream. So, number one, I want to kind of encourage you that dreams, there's not a time limit on it. There's not oh, okay, well, I had the dream 10 years ago and therefore it's defunct now because it hasn't happened. That's not the case, my darling. So I would encourage you, though, to number one, kind of reinvigorate the dream and reinvigorate the vision by writing it down. When I say write it down, like really writing it down, like sitting there, and maybe even I'd recommend you, as I've said to you before, vision boarding it. What does it look like in your head? What does it like, walk it out in terms of what that dream is, what the feeling is. There are going to be some dreams that are, maybe more difficult as we age. So, for example, being an Olympic figure skater, for example, at the age of 40, fine. But there may be a different type of manifestation in your life where, you might want to start figure skating lessons if you hadn't done it before, and you have to just merely kind of act it out. So I would say that if the dream has been dormant for 10 years, then reconnect with the dream, reconnect with the vision, write it down first. Maybe you want to vision board it out as well, and then think about how it's going to feel when you manifest this dream. And then there is always, I'm not sure what your support network is, but then if you do have a particular goal, there may be groups out there that will support, that particular dream, that type of dream, whether it be, I don't know, becoming a hairdresser, or I don't know what kind of education that you may need. It really depends. You know what I mean? But you can do this. No, don't just kind of, just because your dream has been dormant for a bit does not mean that it doesn't exist. There are so many women who, for example, maybe they wanted to start their own business, and they worked for someone else first, and then they had children, and then when their child was ready to go to primary school, they were like, I feel like starting my own business, even though they had wanted to be an entrepreneur from the age, from when they were in school. Then this was the time for them to manifest their dream. So don't sleep on that time, and darling, don't be discouraged about it, okay? But thanks for that great question. So, punish yourself. Right. This is a punishing yourself is a tactic that has worked for others. I haven't used it myself, but it's not as bad as it seems. Like I'm not telling you to like flog yourself in the streets. That's not at all, unless maybe that's what the punishment you're looking at. Um, we there are ways there are ways that you can punish yourself for not achieving your goals. When I say punish yourself, I mean what are the consequences to you not achieving your goal? Where I have seen this work. So, for example, we had a running group. Like it was like a learn to run group, and we had to learn how to run. It was like way back in the beginning, and we had to learn how to run 5K in 45 minutes. For these are people who are non-runners at all, right? So yes, what we did though was that the person, the loser, or the losers would all have to donate money to a charity of a cause that they didn't believe in. So it would be that we deal a large sum of money, £1,000 or $1,000 to a charity that we didn't believe in. And so that was the way that we punished ourselves. So for example, let's just say if I didn't run 5K in under 45 minutes, then I would have to pay $1,000 to the KKK as a donation. You see the look on my face already, how that's just making me screw, right? Or if you, so there are ways that you can really trick yourself and punish yourself or basically give yourself bad consequences. It's like the concept of the swear jar, right? So, if you have a swear jar, you're in your home or in your office, every time someone swears, then they put money into it. But instead of it being kind of like change or a pound, you need to, number one, make sure that it's in a structure that is enforceable. So it's not just you promise to punish yourself. No, there is an accountability there. In Money Moves, there's a website that we've created so that you can actually punish yourself. That basically you pledge to give this money, and then the charity will receive it. But if it's a charity that you hate, then you're going to work hard for them not to do it, especially if it's an amount as well that that's substantial. It's not £100. It's not, it's a lot. It's money that you can definitely do something else with. So there are different ways for you to kind of punish yourself, but definitely number one for this one, you got to have the structure around it to make sure that it's enforceable. And number two, it has to be a consequence that really hurts you, not hurts other people, but really just hurts you in your gut, in your soul. You're like, damn, that I don't want this. And not something that you could, it has to be something that's quite kind of serious enough where you won't be like, oh, okay, forget it then. I've lost the money. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's not just about, paying 1,000. It's about paying 1,000 to the Ku Klux Klan when the work that I do, everything about it is contrary to my whole life has been contrary to the ethos of the Ku Klux Klan. So that's why it hurt me so much. So find that it's really, really great though, especially if you have it with a group of friends. And then if your friends choose it, because my friends chose a charity. They chose the foundation for me to donate to. So if your friends choose it rather than you choosing it, then again, it allows you to just it's going to hit you where it hurts. So it's when your friends choose the consequence as well. So it's great, and we have it in Money Moves in terms of building out that accountability. Where sometimes people like that, they like to, you know, they're more rod than carrot. Let's just say, they more like the don't do this, don't do that. And if you're that kind of person who needs that, not punishment per se, but you just want the bad consequences, that works for you, then this may be a way of you tricking yourself into success by implementing bad consequences that will be enforced by another. Building in, and so a question, I guess, on the flip, that's a great question. Building in micro rewards as you reach dream milestones. Yes, no, wait till the end. Micro rewards definitely works for some people, certainly. in regards to key milestones along the journey. And so it's not one of my top 10. However, I have, um, in terms of, however, I do see that it does work. I, I have not seen, unless it's ridiculously substantial, usually the goal is enough of a reward. You know what I mean? Like to have another associated goal with it. So it could work, but I haven't really seen it work. Like sometimes it works in regard to there, like say for example, if you're quitting smoking, for example, and say, you know, you've quit smoking, you know, you haven't smoked for a week, and then you say, okay, with the money that I've saved, then I'll go get a massage or I'll do something like that. That's that's the only time I've seen it kind of really work, but you're not necessarily tapping into the key drivers of why you're quitting smoking. And so I prefer an approach where you're kind of tapping into those key drivers of the goal rather than kind of secondary drivers. But yo, I if it works for you, then I would say yes, let's add it to the bag of celebrations, and it could be the Twix. So yes, building in micro rewards. Ah, thank you. So yes, you know what I mean. Thank you so much. Woohoo, good times. At the gym, at the gym. So, building accountability. This one is absolutely this is like my top one. Building accountability in regard tricking yourself. And the reason why it's my top one is because I know that I great. That's good. Sorry, guys. It's windy outside and the garbage pail just blew over. So therefore, the dogs are like threats, threats, threats. If you guys listen to the Jay-Z album, you guys know what I'm talking about, and the Black album. So, yes, building accountability is my favorite, and it works. It works for me. I am one of those people that I will keep promises to others before I keep promises to myself, and so that's why I have built up kind of a promise keeper network. That's one of the biggest parts of money moves for me. It also comes probably because of the way I was raised. I put out an article yesterday that we were in the FT and we were talking about Susu and Partner, where it was about my mom kind of putting in money into the Susu to prepare for her big purchases. It was a method of saving, and it wasn't just about her saving, but it was really also about the accountability that she had to the other members of the Susu. So that is one of the amazing things. That's one of the things that I love about accountability because I know it's been, you know, a lot of the times, guys, what I've done is just I've let myself down, you know, because I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, I'm gonna go help this person, or oh no, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna answer all of these incoming emails and all of these incoming questions, but I'm not going to send out the email that I need to send out. And so accountability for me just reminds me having that group, that kind of accountability of my goals, who are, you know, gracefully kind of tenderly remember, you know, reminding me of my own goals, it really, really helps. And this is actually this is across the board. It's proven across all types of goals. You see it when we're talking about exercise. You see it when we're talking about weight loss and Weight Watchers, those groups. That's all based on the accountability system. When we're talking about, you know, just in terms of 360 reviews as well, at work as well, and peer reviews, we see accountability uh, as a primary kind of goal achieving mechanism. But there are a few things that need to be in place. Number one, you got to give the power to that kind of that person who's kind of holding you accountable. And there still has to be a little bit of consequences as well, but there has to be a level of grace and kindness built into the system. So building accountability is key. so sometimes I have one kind of accountability partner, but then a lot of the times where it really works is where we have a group. So that's why masterminds work really, really well, particularly like business masterminds. So when we have in Money Moves, the mastermind group, like the elevated group, they hold each other accountable. They gotta come correct, because number one, like, you know what, everyone's paying to be there. You ain't trying to waste anyone's time. So, and it's not a kind of a snobbery, but there's definitely kind of an inclusivity exclusivity feel to it, because you're like, look, you either come hard, come correct, or you're not part of the group. Like, there's no kind of waylay, like just kind of come, just kind of fly in, fly out. Like the accountability, it's almost like birds of a feather stick together. And that is so key. What I've noticed is that my friendship circles have changed. The people I hang around with changed. What we talk about has changed as well. It changes because people who are really kind of concerned about execution and getting things done and making big things happen, then we start to hang out with each other, and we start to not hang out with people who are giving us excuses, or who um, are just kind of talking it out but not walking it out. That being said, what happens also though is that, I remember when I went through like a really tough time 2 years ago, then my accountability group, some of the most powerful Black women in the UK, they they carried me until I could walk myself. So I was accountable to them, and they also, they basically pushed me like, hey, are you okay? What you doing? What you doing? What you doing? What are you doing today? Oh, Mel, you'll be great. You should do that. Like, you should do this, putting suggestions at my door, when quite frankly, all I wanted to do was lock myself up in my house. So building that accountability for me, that has been key. No goals are met in isolation. None. Even if you look at, like, say, tennis players versus football players, right? So football players work in a team. Tennis players work by themselves. But you know what? I know that Serena Williams, when she plays and she doesn't play maybe to her best, to what she thinks is her best, she's not just thinking of herself. She's thinking about like basically like the five people, her team, including her coach, her nutritionist, her daughter, all these people, her squad, because you know what? She's accountable to them as well. Accountability works, my friends. So, you know what, really try to, like, that's the reason why that's the last of the presentation. Make ish happen by using any of these tactics. We again, this was a quick trot through them. We go through them in much more detail in Money Moves, and that's why I wanted to give you guys a taste of what we would be doing. If you haven't met me before, then you can kind of get to know me a little bit, and you get to know my style. So, and if you have any questions, then, or you know what, if you have any feedback, then just drop me a line. Let me know. Money Moves is the registration is only open until the 31st of October. 2019, and you can visit melanieusabi.com/money moves to find out more information and to join for £29 a month. £29 a month is like less than a meal at ZZ with wine. That's like a wine-free meal. That's what £29 is. So, and you get to hang out with a bunch of people who are doing the same thing as you, and we get to cover everything from what we've talked about today, which is execution, but then also talking about our money and how we make it and how we keep it, as well as some of the business tactics and business practices that will get you ahead in your career. So it's a combination of everything that I've learned, everything that I teach at the MBA school in leadership and management and enterprise, everything that I learned as a consultant for the big four consultancies, and also everything I've learned myself being a woman who started a business from scratch and made it something really, really great. So all of that, £29 a month, with accountability groups, book clubs, all kinds of stuff, online learning, video templates, all kinds of craziness. It's a no-brainer. Okay, so that's it for me. Saturday morning. I this went on much longer than I thought, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the questions as well. Thank you so much for joining me on Saturday morning. I will send out the link to the replay very shortly, and yeah, like join in. I hopefully I'm going to see you guys on the other side. I'm going to see you on the Money Move side. But thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you soon. Bye, everyone.